I don't know if there's an awesome panel in this book. I got one for that one, so yeah, definitely. Check out.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
There you go.
I was saying, you can't. There's not an awesome panel in this book. There's some decent ones, but this one's lacking some great panels, some great pages.
Anybody know what flexograph is? I was going to ask Jared, but he's not here today since he's the artist.
I think it's a way they do it or something. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Looks like it's made by creating a positive mirrored master of the acquired image as a 3D relief in rubber or polymer mold. Flexograph plates can be created with analog and digital plate making process.
Okay. Noticing Postbox the Pit, they stopped using street addresses for the people that write in.
Yeah. That's a good thing to point out. At a certain point, they're like, maybe we shouldn't be posting. Can you imagine in this day and age?
Well, I just imagine that scene from Jay and Bob Strike Back, and they go back and hunt down the people that left the bad reviews. Did you write?
We're live, so I guess let's get the show started. Also, this fun on air. And welcome to G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, episode number 37. As usual, I am your host, Aaron Brotherhead Moss. And joining me, I have Kevin, the Raider Nerd. Hey, Kevin, thanks for joining us, man.
Glad to be back on the show. Sorry I've missed your last few shows, but I've been living vicariously through you guys if I listen to the episodes and yelling back at the podcast thinking I should have said that, but I wasn't there to say that. So boo on me.
Well, you're here now, though. So that's the And also joining us is Brad Abraham, a.k.a. Jared version 2.0. Hey, Brad. How you doing, man?
I'm good, although I think today I should just be Jared 1.0 since Jared did not deign to bless us with his presence.
Ooh, sick burn. Sick burn.
Maybe I reviewed already. He just doesn't know it yet. No. Let's wait and see. No. Well, I'm glad you guys could join me today and talk about a little G.I. Joe. Hope one of you guys had followed in Jared's footsteps and not read the book. What the heck? No.
We like to use real comics when we do our podcast.
There you go. And well, again, I'm sure that Brad probably didn't read this issue. We talked last time. This is another one of his favorite characters.
Oh, I took special pleasure in revisiting this issue, and I will hold my comments until I'm properly asked for them.
So let's get into it. This is G.I. Joe, issue 37. The title of this was called Twin Brothers. The cover date was July of 1985. The on-sale date, April the 9th of 1985. The cover price was 75 cents. The writer, as normal, Larry Hama. Penciler, Frank Springer. Inker, Andy Muschieski. Letterer, Rick L. Parker. Colorist, George Russos. Editor was Dennis O'Neil. The cover credits was by Mike Zeck and John Beatty.
Oh, hold on. You got to say it right. Zeck.
And we don't have Jared here to name drop it. He knows him. So
Exactly. Yeah. You know how he went in Zeck's limousine and they partied out and, went to stripper poles and stuff like that. We miss those stories.
And this was reprinted in G.I. Joe Volume 4 trade paperback. So the synopsis for this one. A Ripcord, Blowtorch, Gung-Ho, and Candy, who is in her Bongo Bear suit, arrive at the Arbago Brothers Circus and are spotted by Tomax and Zaymon. The twin Crimson Guard commanders call Destro for support in capturing the Joes, but the request is denied. Therefore, the twin Cobra agents send dozens of Crimson Guards in three-piece suits into Hollow Mirrors with orders to kill Ripcord, but he escapes with Bongo by hiding behind Mirrors, making a dash for the Big Top. Wild Bill, Footloose, and Flint arrive at the circus on a dragonfly, and after Flint jumps off the armadillo and attacks Zaymont, who is on top of the roller coaster loop, Footloose cuts the armadillo's line and drives towards the roller coaster to secure the area. Flint lands enough punches to Zaymont's face to knock the Cobra agent down, but remains standing while telepathically yelling for his brother's help. Tomax leaves the Big Top and races to help his brother. Gung-Ho and Blowtorch beat up some Cobra agents at the roller coaster, and Footloose plays chicken with Tomax before the Crimson Guard commander turns, drives up a ramp, and throws a ring of fire in the circus. Flint then watches Tomax catch Zaymont while racing through the roller coaster's loop on his Cobra Ferret. Wild Bill chases the Crimson Guard commanders, but they evade the Joe's missiles by entering a large drainage pipe. So that is the synopsis for this issue. Let's go and get some thoughts, as we normally do. We will start with the cover. The cover of this one shows Flint. Try that again. The voice cut out on me. So the cover of this one shows we get the helicopter above dropping off the armadillo. We have Flint leaping off the armadillo toward Tomax. Or is that Zaymont? Can't see. One of the twin brothers. Zaymont. He was on top of the roller coaster. Leaping towards Zaymont. Zaymont's got his gun ready to fire at our Joe. Let's get some thoughts on this. Let's go ahead and start with Brad. Where I was starting.
I heard the sigh. The sigh was quite audible there. Okay, I'll be brief here. I like the cover. I like the colors. I like the action. I like that we have 3 new characters and a new vehicle making their debut on the cover, which is always a good sign that what's inside will have a lot of action. This one I think got a TV commercial for the comic as well, which I remember because of those debuts. They were able to kind of repurpose the animation for the toy commercial for Flint and the Armadillo and the twins, the Glimmer twins. I mean, the Cobra twins. That said, I don't know if it's exactly what I would call an all-timer, like an all-time classic cover, but then again, not every cover really needs to be for the ages. So it certainly promises action inside, and it delivers on that. And in this case, it's one of those rare instances where they actually depict a scene from the comic on the book as it kind of more or less plays out. Sometimes they would just have something on that would be more representative of what you're going to see inside. So we'll put that in the bonus category as well.
And Kevin, do you have any thoughts on this cover?
I was trying to remember back when I first saw this and wondering, first of all, who are all these guys? We see someone that looks kind of Cobra-y, we see some guys that look kind of G.I. Joey, but we're like, it doesn't look like Duke, and it doesn't quite look like Dusty. But it was it definitely catches your eye, especially when they're like, on something like Coney Island, roller coaster and stuff like that. And the closest wooden roller coaster I had in my neck of the woods was at Magic Mountain, the Colossus, I think it was called there. Sometimes they would run it backwards. But it was cool to see someone, jumping onto and having a battle on top of a roller coaster. And that was one thing that stood in my mind. But I remember being curious, like, who the heck are these guys? What's going on here? And the machine gun that one of the twin brothers here, have we decided, is that Tomax?
I believe it's Zaymont, because he's
Zaymont. Just kind of reminded me of the German SG or MG. What's it called? The German machine gun that a lot of the German officers would carry and such. But yeah, I was always looking at the type of gun that, as we find out, is Flint's carrying. Looks like he's got your standard M16 there, and wondering what kind of like small tank that was as well. But as we know now, it's the Armadillo, and we got Footloose and Flint jumping at the twin there, and yeah, pretty cool cover.
Very nice. And yes, I enjoyed this cover also. Like Brad said, it's not top 5. It's not one of the top covers you think of. But I think I remember seeing the commercial. Yeah, I played the commercial at the end of the last episode for this issue. So, and like I said, yeah, we got this unknown Cobra here at the top. Like I said, I had started reading G.I. Joe before I got to this issue. I started, like I say, in the 50s, and I came back and picked up these issues later. So I already knew who most of these characters were already by this point. But yeah, coming fresh off the stand, brand new characters, I'm sure it's very much that's who are these guys. And like, we don't get a shot of Flint's face, we just get a shot of his backside. He's leaking his Zamots. But yeah, I like this cover personally. So let's go get some numbers on this. Let's go ahead and start with Kevin. Let's go and start with you this time. Rating would you give this out of 1 to 5 Yo-Jo Colas?
It's not a great cover, but it's not a bad cover. No half points, right?
I don't mind doing halves. That's
okay. Then I'm just gonna. I'll push it towards a 3. Then I'll give it that. I probably would if I'd done half. I'd probably give it a 2.5. But I'll just say a good solid 3.
And Brad.
3. I'll give it a 3. And that's not rounding up. I think it does its job. It draws your attention. I remember walking into my local convenience store and seeing it on the rack. So yeah, I think a 3. It's not the greatest cover. It's not terrible either.
And I'll go slightly better than you guys. I'll give it 3.5. I think he gets a half mainly because, like Brad was saying earlier, this is actually a scene that's depicted in the comic. So that's always an extra bonus. So not bad, not a bad cover. Let's go get some thoughts on the actual interior of the issue. Let's go and start with Kevin this time. We'll put the bad off for a little bit. I can see Brad eyeballing me like, you want to? Kevin, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Overall, enjoyable. I love the fact that we get the introduction of some new Joes and, of course, Cobras as well. First appearance of Tomax and Zamot, Flint, and Footloose. Of course, the G.I. Joe, is it Armadillo mini tank? Is that what it is? And the Cobra Ferret 4-wheeler, which I remember owning myself, and I think I might still have somewhere. And this is the continuance of the Candy arc. I remember too, because I remember how it ends very well. I was just kind of wondering at the time where they were kind of going with that. And but one of the things I was trying to figure out here is the first opening page, the title page. It says Twin Brothers. And it shows the van with Bongo and stuff. And you look back to see it says Arcos Brothers Circus, and you look at the other attractions. One says Wild Woman, Elephant Lady, JoJo something, and Madame Nemo. Very interesting sideshows. I'm wondering what that stuff is. You get. I mean, it feels more like a bridge issue, if that makes sense, to where it kind of is continuing the story while introducing new characters, and of course, Flint being Flint, and show he's a little full of himself and such. But this is interesting because when you first read this, when you read the dialogue boxes or bubbles, when the twins are talking to each other and they're kind of outlined in that wobbly red thing, and then you realize, that's because they're kind of telepathic between each other, and that's one of the skills or whatever it is that they have, that they don't need a walkie-talkie or in-ear communication. They can always hear each other and, of course, feel each other. and stuff. So, but it's a fun issue. I love the fact that when Footloose shows up, and I love the fact that he's what is it, Wild Bill's being kind of gruff with him and says, "Footloose, you're a new bullet stopper." And it was an interesting little fight, of course, on the roller coaster. It kind of reminds me of certain movies that kind of take advantage of filming on roller coasters. And one of my favorites was Shakedown. I don't know if you guys remember that movie from I think 88, 89 with Peter Weller and Sam, what's his name?
Elliot.
Sam Elliott. Thank you for knowing what movie that is, Brad.
That's a great movie.
Yes, very underrated action film from the late 80s that also great action scene takes place on a roller coaster as well. So, but yeah.
And Brad, let's have it.
Okay. All right. All right. Seriously, though. Okay. I'm going to have to begin this with a bit of a disclaimer because ever since issue 25, I've maintained that Zartan and his Dreadnoks were my least favorite Cobra adjacent antagonists.
Oh, is that changing now?
That changes with this issue. With the arrival of the Crimson Twins, Toe Jam and Xanax. I mean Tomax and Zaymot. Now I get what Hasbro and Larry were going for here, okay? Because the Corsican Brothers is a somewhat famous Alexander Dumas novel, which has been adapted many times for film, but us 70s and 80s kids would probably best remember as the basis for the Cheech and Chong movie of the same name. And the whole twins who experience each other's pain and distress is taken from that. So if, like me, you think that Toe Jam and Tomax and Zaymot are a bridge layer too far for G.I. Joe, you kind of have to thank and or blame Alexander Dumas for that. But that all being said, I do tolerate them because I think even Larry recognized that they had a limited shelf appeal. So while they do remain and continue to be active players in the Real American Hero universe, they never really get the full-on origin and backstory that Zartan and Destro and the Baroness do. But I will add that you saw this on their file card, the toy, that idea that their secondary specialty was, I guess, as bankers or accountants, which seems kind of like a one-off gag, but it actually turned them around and made them a lot more interesting in the sort of the revitalization of Joe in comics in the last 10, 15 years or so, where they were treated in Devil's Due series, in the Chuckles miniseries, The Last Laugh, as these sinister terrorist bankers, which is really interesting how they kind of became one of the better elements of the recent comics. But that's all in the future as far as where we are in this comic. And I'll go on to the issue. And one of the things I noticed here for the first time reading it this morning, and I know this is a topic of some debate over the last few episodes of the podcast, is we had the big reveal of Billy being Cobra Commander's dad in issue 33, and then we had 3 fill-in one-shot issues. But if you look at page 3 of this issue, panel number 2, and Candy kind of gives a little recap. You guys are helping me because you owe me for taking off with my van in a wild chase. And down in the bottom, there's a little box from the editor, Denny O'Neil, that says last issue. So chronologically, it could be argued that this issue takes place immediately after issue 33, which would kind of make this issue 34, not Shakedown, not the movie, the comic, the issue 34.
Wasn't that something you guys last episode you guys did talk about, that they probably needed more time on something and they shoved that other issue in?
Yeah, I think that was what we sort of surmised. That was kind of fun because it was like the 3 or 4 of us just sort of forensically taking the issue apart, figuring out which parts were Larry inking and penciling, and which ones were the other teams, because the 3 different storylines in issue 36 looked like they had different art teams on them. The best I can tell is I think that's probably the case. It may have just been this team was behind on something. But I think what may be a little more accurate, which gets to another observation I had, is I'm wondering if the reason for the delay was they were still waiting for final versions of what Tomax and Zaymot looked like. Because if you look at page flipping through, like in the Funhouse, the House of Mirrors scene on page 11, when the Crimson Guardsmen unveil themselves, they all look like his tank drivers. They don't look like Crimson Guardsmen. And if you backtrack to issue 33, or not 33, it was one of the previous issues when they introduced the concept of the Crimson Guard, and the first Fred series agent comes out, and his uniform doesn't quite look like the final version of the Crimson Guard either. So I'm wondering if maybe because they were still waiting on clearances from Hasbro for what these guys were going to look like, they kind of had to delay it as much as they could, and then they just had to say, okay, we gotta make a decision. So they just went with the best bet. So that's my little theory about this one, was that it may have just been waiting for clearances from Hasbro to sort of lock these things, even though they changed the appearance of things in G.I. Joe all the time. But I guess they wanted them to look more or less what you would see in the toy stores.
I got a question for you guys. Footloose. Do we see him again?
I don't think we do. I do not think we do, which is
Aaron?
kind of... Oh, we can't hear Aaron. Aaron's muted.
Try that again. I muted myself. Thank you. I'm trying to remember. I don't recall that we do. He kind of shows up, and then maybe he's not one of Larry's favorites. Yeah, I don't think we see very much of him if we do again.
I think what happened to him is he moved to the Midwest and he taught the kids how to dance.
Well, I was wondering what his deal was. So whenever you want to learn about a Joe, what do? You go look at the toys file card. Okay.
Right.
And it's funny because they sell individual file cards on eBay, and you can kind of tell how popular the character is by the price that they're charging for the file card. Footloose's is only $5, where like Airborne's like $9-10. So I'm looking at him here, and he's born in Gary, Indiana. His name is Andrew Meyers. Meyers was a valedictorian of his high school class, captain of the track team, and Eagle Scout. He was going for his degree in phys ed on a state scholarship when he suddenly dropped out, moved to the coast, and became quite weird for about 3 years. He was standing on the boardwalk in Venice, pondering something cosmic, when the utter pointlessness of his existence hit him between the eyes like a runaway freight train. Quote, I'll join the army, he said, and promptly did. Took basic and AIT in Fort Benning, graduated jump school and desert training unit, qualified expert in all NATO and Warsaw, pack small arms. And then there's like a little quote at the bottom. Some of the Joes think that Footloose is out there, but all he's trying to do is find himself. He's the all-American boy who gets lost on the way to the fair, and he's simply trying to go home any which way he can. Most folks think they know us. Most folks think they know who they are and where they're going. They're the dangerous ones.
I think you just inadvertently answered what happens to Footloose while we don't see him after this issue. He just wandered off. He just decided, I guess I'm not in the army anymore, and he just
if he's
in the
trying
earth,
to go
Cain.
home, if he's trying to go home any which way he can, does he go butt loose and with an orangutan?
That's the only way you can.
Anyway, that's Footloose.
Yeah. Although I would like to interject and just say that he doesn't really register as much of a character in this. He's kind of a bit of a nebbish. He sort of throws down and helps out the other Joes and becomes a valuable member of the team. But
I think he might have been a G.I. Joe casualty in my Cobra G.I. Joe figure wars. I'm just saying.
That's what I was going to say. As far as action figures go, he was actually, I think, one of the highlights of this particular year, because we hadn't had any just straight up infantry characters joining.
The thing that's a good thing. The one thing I will say good about his figure was that he looked like a normal like soldier, which I always thought was kind of cool when you would throw out the Joes that didn't have all these flamboyant looking accessories. They look like a soldier you could throw in a certain situation or something like that.
Yeah, like he would have been a good troop builder if you were going in that way. But just the aesthetic of the figure, he actually looked pretty cool. He was one of my favorite ones of that period.
Well, while we were talking, I was looking it up, and according to Wikipedia, how accurate that is, it appears in issue 37, 38, and then he again is part of the invasion in issues 49 and 50.
Did Saw Viper take him out later on?
In the Marvel comics after that.
What's that?
In the Marvel comics,
Uh-huh.
the entry, there was no mention after the Battle of Springfield.
Okay.
That's where he wandered off.
We're taking him out.
He's probably reappeared in the relaunch, when Larry took over and brought things back in the Real American Hero. I know they've done a few big epic battle issues, and I think in one of the recent ones, I think in the Snake Hunt storyline, it was all ballyhooed that every active and living Joe character was brought in at some point. Like there's a whole roster roll call of all of them, and I'm sure he was in there somewhere. So, he's just not flashy enough. He's footloose, but he's not flashy. So he doesn't get a lot of attention.
He's footloose, but not fancy free.
Yeah.
As I'm reading that series, I don't recall him showing up, but it may have been like in a crowd scene or.
Yeah, I think it was something like that.
So, which again tells me that he may not be. Try that again. He may not be one of Larry's favorite characters. So. Other thoughts there, Kevin?
No.
Your diatribe. Do you have any other thoughts on?
Other thoughts on this issue? Well, I think Kevin's struggling to disagree with me because he knows deep down that Tomax and Zaymon aren't the high point of the series either. But I
really like their figures, though. I got to tell you, I love their figures, and okay, you know how we kind of in the past when we do the show, we feel that overall the G.I. Joe and Cobra characters are represented better in the comic. Well, I think Tomax and Zaymon are better in the cartoon than they are in the comic. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's fair. They were all over the comic too. I think they just are on the comic, the TV show. I think some characters just work better on the TV show than in the comic.
Okay, so I'm not alone in thinking that.
You're not alone. Well, even if you look at Snake Eyes, who's arguably the most popular G.I. Joe character ever, it was always in the comic more so than the cartoon, because on the cartoon he doesn't speak, so there's limits to what you can do with him. So he always seemed like Duke and Flint were the real showy characters, and Scarlet were the ones who got the more story time on the cartoon, whereas in the comic it was more Snake Eyes.
Yeah, and I always thought the figures were just really cool looking. I think they did a great job sculpting those and making them stuff. But I think they shined more throughout the cartoons.
No, I would agree. And I think overall this issue is a fine issue in that it starts answering some questions and it hints at a larger plot happening, and especially after that interminable wait of 3 whole months between the Billy reveal in 33 and then picking the story up here. It felt like you're finally moving forward, where the previous 3 issues, while good issues, it was like every month would go by and you're like, well, what's going on with Billy? And I think the next 6 or so issues are really sort of stay on this track. It's like we've kind of had some diversions for the last little bit, and now we're getting back into the main story, and we stick with it for a while, which is appreciated. So again, kind of like if I was rating the whole issue on a 1 to 5 Yo-Joe scale, I'd probably give it a 3 as well. Not the greatest of all issues, but certainly it's got its moments. I'm
with you there. I'd give it about a 3 too.
And yeah, I agree with you guys. Yeah, it's about I'd say it's about a 3. I do like the twins better than you guys do. And it may be like Kevin, it may just be coming from the cartoon and their action figures. Their action is really cool. I kind of do like the mind share they have. Were you going to say something there, Kevin?
Yeah, I think Brad brought up a good point. I think if they had a more flushed out backstory, the concept, I'm fine with them having the telepathic thing and all that kind of stuff. And their weakness is if you punch one, you punch the other, which is great. But I think that if they had a more flushed out background, I think they, I love the look of them. But I think that would have been nice, and I remember I asked a question on one of the cartoons a while ago, like, I really like the banker version of them, when they're dressed up in their business suits and stuff like that. I think that looks cool as well. But if they were just flushed out a little bit more, I think they would have been even cooler.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. But I do like to say there's one scene on page 7 where Amon was talking to his brother. He's like, I can see that for myself, Amon. You think you have your eyes closed? Just showing that they have that link where they can see through each other's eyes. And that may be one reason why Larry didn't use them very much in the comics, because, again, Larry tried to keep things a little more grounded. I mean, he didn't use Cobra Law and a lot more of the silly elements he didn't really, he kind of stayed away from as much as he could. So that may be one reason why they didn't get much backstory and much to do in the comic, whereas in the cartoon, they leaned into the silliness. So that's my thoughts on why. Yeah, they get kind of a short shift here. And, yeah, like Kevin was saying, it very much, I think, would have helped them out quite a bit if they would have had more of a backstory, more of an origin, where they're coming from. And I think it was Brad had mentioned about the Crimson Guard uniform not looking quite right. I thanks to Mr. Kevin's suggestion, I posted on the Facebook group that we're doing this show.
Yeah, didn't one of your posters mention the same thing?
I think so. There were 2 comments. One was from Clinton Robinson on the cover. He said, why only one twin? Also, why so much Flint booty?
Why do we see Flint's butt?
if you have one twin, you don't need the second one. They're almost just alike, so that's why they need one on there. And Flint's booty, well, the girl readers need to have something to look at too. That's my non-official answers to that. I don't know if you guys have a better answer than that, but that's my thoughts. But then Hoover Jeremiah, buddy who does the Transformers show, he said that he was bummed out by the debut of the Crimson Guard, that they didn't draw him right. And he mentioned, much like, I think it was Brad, that they look like Kiss drivers. And I came back to him, well, this wasn't actually their debut. If I'm not mistaken, they introduced them a few issues earlier at the big rally. And yeah, you were right. They were drawn wrong there also. And so I think what you guys were saying, that they probably just were waiting for final approval of the toy. They hadn't got everything completed yet, but they needed to get something out. And they knew they were coming, but yeah, they're like, well, I don't know. They've been an earlier design possibly too. And before it came out, they've changed it maybe. You have a thought there, Kevin?
Yeah, I guess the Crimson Guard type of thing. I like the fact that they're all kind of undercover as these businessmen that all dress alike, with the briefcases and stuff like that. I would have loved to see more of those in toys. I think would have been really cool. I always thought I like that kind of idea. And then they then strip them off, and then they're the Crimson Guards, the CGs. Is that what we call them? The CGs? Yeah, for short, I guess.
Yeah, no, I like the Crimson Guards and the CGs. I like their look. And I think, what we ended up with looks a lot better than the Hiss Viper we have in this issue. But yeah, that was another cool toy I liked. It was like the Crimson Guards. They're right below the Vipers to me. But yeah, this was a good issue. Like I said, it wasn't top of the line. There was some action, but as we'll get to in a little bit, there's not a lot of great action scenes, in my opinion. But yeah, it was a good issue. We don't get much in it. In fact, we won't get much ever. But yeah, this was what it was. It was a decent issue. It introduced some new toys, and that may have been one of the big things about this issue, is that it's a way to introduce. We got 4 new figures plus a couple of books. So just Larry's got to get stuff introduced, so here it is.
Yeah, and they finally introduced Flint, which is interesting because if you were around at the time, Flint made his debut in the cartoon in the Pyramid of Darkness miniseries, which aired in September of '84, and this is April of '85, I think. So it was a delay. We all knew who Flint was from the cartoons.
And we know that the Pyramid of Darkness miniseries is far superior than any other miniseries that there was. I heard you guys mentioning that last episode, and there was many reasons why the Pyramid of Darkness is most epic.
Well, it has the most epic vehicle ever, which is, of course, the hovercraft, which, as we all know, is the best of the G.I. Joe vehicles.
And the best team up of all time with Snake Eyes and Shipwreck with their animals, and then you get breakdancing Snake Eyes. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
How good is that?
And don't forget Roadblock and Honolulu. So it was a magical time. But again, that I think that's the area that the comic kind of had to walk that line when the cartoon was on, because it was easy to throw the characters up into the cartoon and have them be present, but you would sometimes be waiting a while for them to show up in the comic.
Yeah. Now, Brad, you're reading straight from the actual comic itself, correct? Like I am?
Yes, I am.
I just want to mention, too, we like to look at the ads, and I did want to mention one ad is that the only comic I was really reading at this time was G.I. Joe. Then I kind of started latching on to other comics. But if you are watching the current Falcon and Winter Soldier series on Disney Plus, there is also has been mentioned that they are doing the Secret Wars, and Emilia Clarke, who was in, of course, Queen of the Dragons in Game of Thrones, has been cast in that series or movie. They haven't announced what it's going to be, but on page 7, there's a great ad for Secret Wars 2, guest starring Amazing Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Power Man, and Iron Fist. The action starts here and continues through Fantastic Four, the Amazing Spider-Man, the Web of Spider-Man, 1 in a 9-issue limited series.
I remember reading that limited series, and I remember reading a lot of the issues that they continued the story in. And I remember also about 10 years ago being in Midtown Comics in Manhattan, and there was a hardcover collected edition of Secret Wars 2 and every other comic that it was spun off into.
Oh, wow.
The thing was massive. I could barely lift it, and I didn't even look at the price because I knew it was going to be more than I was going to be willing to pay.
Yeah. Well, does anyone have any thoughts about this issue?
I would like to mention something in Postbox The Pit.
Go for it.
So I asked you earlier, so a lot of people here are all referring to that famous issue 33, Brad, with Billy's son trying to assassinate what we find out is his father, Cobra Commander. And everyone is referring to it. So this is what, 4 or 5 issues later, and this is what they're posting the Pit here. And one reader writes in, Chris Murphy from Quiltman, Georgia, says, G.I. Joe #3 knocked me off my feet. The art was superb. The second I opened up the issue, I noticed the type of paper it was printed on, and I loved it. I'm also glad to see that the new Pit has been completed. I have a few questions. 1, why did the Baroness faint since it states on her file that she knows Destro's identity? 2, are you going to start printing G.I. Joe on this type of paper? 3, does General Iron Butt mean that Breaker, Zap, Grunt, Short Fuse, Stalker, Flash, Scarlet, Rock and Roll will not be fighting anymore? Well, give my best to Hawk, Chris. And then they reply saying, thanks for noticing the new paper. We're also using a new printing technique called flexograph. If you like it now, you wait till you see the results when we become more familiar with it. As for the Baroness, could it be that Destro's appearance has changed, or even his identity? Old Iron Butt might have said that the Joes will have desk jobs, but did he mean they wouldn't fight again? Hard to believe, Chris. Hard to believe. So flexograph, I guess it was a new type of printing process they were using. Aaron?
That's what I'm gathering, yeah.
If
Yeah,
only
so-
I could ask some artists that might know what that is. But Jared, you're not here. Oh well.
I have an artist on the show to do that. Yeah, well, he didn't work out too well. Well, remember maybe next month we can ask him, or maybe he'll hear this and chime in. Or while we're talking, maybe I can reach out magically and with him somehow and find out. But anyways, and I'm sorry, Brad. Do you have any other thoughts on this issue before we move on?
I have no other thoughts on this issue before we move on, other than the fact that it has an ad in the front for Reese's Pieces, featuring a weird little alien character that is clearly meant to be a ripoff or a riff on E.T., which tells me that the licensing deal between Universal Studios, Amblin Entertainment, and Reese's had ended by that point, but they wanted to contain the association with creepy-looking otherworldly creatures.
All right, then let's go ahead and move on to our next segment here, where we have a Real American Hero. This is the Joe or Cobra that did something either outstanding or deserves special recognition from our team. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and start with Kevin. Do you have a Real American Hero?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Candy the Bongo because she knows when she sees trouble in a man and dumps him right away. That's what I'm going with right there.
Well, he stayed dumped. Anyways, Brad, do you have any Real American Heroes for this issue?
I'm going to actually, adjacent to what Kevin said, I'm going to say Ripcord, because of all the characters in this issue and even through this whole storyline, he actually has something of an arc to him. He actually goes through a bit of an emotional ringer, a bit of a roller coaster, and he almost becomes a main character for a good chunk of the next year or so. And I've maintained before that of all my G.I. Joe action figures, that Ripcord remains my favorite. The character and the toy as well.
Oh, one of the great figures.
Yeah, who had such a huge pivotal role in this arc and this period in Joe, and then after it's over, he kind of vanished. He never quite got the replay value that some of the other characters did. So, but this is sort of Ripcord's year and his storyline. So, for people who are reading along for the first time, I'd say pay attention to Ripcord and what happens to him and what he goes through for the next year at least.
Yeah, something like that. A year and a half. And see, for mine, I was thinking about picking the twins just because I like them and I know they're not as well liked by some people on the show. But I actually ended up having to I went with Ripcord also.
I think he meant settle, Brad. I'm just going to say, I think he meant settle.
Yeah.
That was not a slip of the tongue. Sorry, Aaron. Who did you say?
The same one that Brad said, Ripcord.
Okay.
Yeah, because he got it. I knew Kevin from this.
That settling phrase we're going to use in a little bit here.
Yes. Ripcord is my Real American Hero also, just because this starts is the beginning of one of his big arcs, I guess his big arc, and we'll see more of him in upcoming issues. Then we move on to the next little segment I have. Again, I've stolen this from the Long Box Crusade crew because that's what I do. If you could have one page of art in this book, which page would you settle for? And this time I use settle intentionally. What? You have a page of art that you'd settle for? Would you settle for this issue?
I would probably settle for page 18. That's where they're on the big rescue on the roller coaster where Flint and either Toe Jam or Xanax, I can never tell the two of them apart, are fighting, and Xanax and Toe Jam are rescuing each other. It's just got some good action, and the way it's staged, it's just a lot of great movement, and it would look pretty snappy on a wall. So I would happily settle for that one.
And Kevin, what are you willing to settle for?
I was looking at the one where Toe Jam, or I'm sorry. was on the motorcycle there and flying through the ring of fire as the tigers look on. I was looking at that one. But Brad, do me a favor. Look at page 4. Do we get a cameo of Snake Eyes in the top left there?
Let me check here. 2, 3.
When they're looking
We
on
do.
the training. Okay, that's the one I choose just because Snake Eyes makes a 1-part cameo in this issue. We needed more Snake Eyes in this issue. So that's the one I choose, page 4.
But oddly enough, he doesn't say a word.
Nope. He's just standing there, stoically while Duke looks on at the training.
And like we talked about earlier, I think for the things got started, there's not a lot of greats. It's not a bad book artistically wise, but unlike most of the other issues, there's not a lot of standout pages in this book, and that's what we're talking about settling and yeah, I was having a hard time myself trying to find a good one to choose. I ended up settling on page 16, the one where the armadillo Chase being, who is it? Him and the ferret are fighting each other with Footloose and one of the twins. It's just a decent action scene. It's not the greatest, but it's decent. So, and like I say, in this book, this issue here, there's not a lot of great things to choose from. So I think we go for that one.
I guess the closest thing that we get to the cover is page 12, where you actually see Flint jumping off the armadillo down to the track as he's heading to land on one of the twins. Right. And then you don't see him actually land until page 14, where he takes a swing at one of them.
Yeah, those 2 panels there on bottom page 12, I kind of mushed those together to make the cover.
Yeah.
You got the helicopter with the armadillo and Flint jumping off. So I kind of smushed those together and get the cover there.
What'd you guys think of the armadillo?
It was I thought as a toy, it was actually a neat little vehicle, even though it didn't really do much of anything. It didn't have any missiles. I think the cannons at the front kind of tilted up and down. So it wasn't
just basically a little mini tank. So
basically, and I think that's why it only appears in this issue, along with Footloose. Footloose took off in it and just.
It's like, fine. Larry's like, fine, we'll sell the toy, 1 issue only.
Yeah,
here you go.
Well, yeah. But no, I guess it just didn't have enough play value.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a decent vehicle for what it was, but yeah, didn't have any fancy parts to it or anything. It's just a little 1-man armored tank.
I would love for someone, especially like those G.I. Joe conventions where they have like the G.I. Joe dioramas, to like recreate famous comic book covers. And this one actually would have been a cool one to do, with the dragonfly carrying the armadillo and doing something kind of fun like that. That would have been really neat, to kind of bring attention to this a little bit more. Because that would be fun to recreate, because you could have all the pieces. You have one of the twins, you have the Flint, and Footloose, and then of course the dragonfly and stuff. That'd be neat.
And for the scale of the armadillo and the dragonfly, you could probably pull it off too. And I mean, I guess that's the good thing about the armadillo was it was a budget toy. It was it was the G.I. Joe vehicle you got from your aunt for your birthday. But
I'm not getting you the dragonfly or the whale. You're going to get this little tiny tank.
Yeah, but I don't think any kid woke up on Christmas morning going, "Oh, I hope there's an armadillo under the tree."
I'm just okay. I was just looking online trying to find anything on armadillo about how much appearances it made, but there's not much on that. So
yeah,
which probably tells us something. But we're going to go and take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about the cartoon. I was getting with Jared about the flexograph information on that. Just okay, we can respond. Let's go and get back to the show. And welcome back. So next up, we're going to look at G.I. Joe the cartoon. Okay, this episode we're looking at the episode entitled Cobra Soundwaves. This was written by Ted Pedersen, and first aired October the 17th, 1985. And I just took a quick little synopsis from the internet. This one is Cobra develops a powerful sound weapon and attacks a Shriek's oil supply with it in the Middle East. G.I. Joe must stop Cobra before they leak oil everywhere. So, Brad, Jared 1.0 now. Do you have it?
Do you have this? Brad, you got these notes right here?
Oh, hang on. Let me get my notes here. All right, here we are. Ripple.
You just
There we
picked
go.
up any random paper and shook it, didn't you?
I basically did. All my notes are digital right now. All my notes are on my tablet right now, and as you can see, they are quite detailed. But I've been kind of skipping through them just to spare you my long-winded blather. Cobra Soundwaves, yes. Well, you get the good and you get the bad, and when you get them both, you get this episode. The good, I think.
Okay, Mr. Facts of Life.
Yes, thank you. I was waiting to see who would recognize it. But the good is that I think Cobra's whole plot to destabilize this unnamed Middle Eastern country and seize a third of the world's oil supply is good. It's what terrorists would do. It takes some planning and some finesse to pull something like that off, which Cobra really doesn't have any of, because instead they're messing around with giant robot crabs and their usual nonsense. Is
that more? Okay, go ahead. I was going to say, is that more usual nonsense than having yet another battle arena?
Yeah. Maybe they spend less time constructing battle arenas and arenas of sport for their captives, and more focusing on the actual. You build the arena. This is the lesson: is you build the arena of sport after you've conquered the world. Then you can put them in every city. You can put them in every small town, and every Friday night it's arena of sport.
Cobra Commander's contractors are like, okay, so you want the throne, you want the outside to have a snake shape. Are we doing another arena of death? Yes, I want another arena of death. Must try to get Duke again.
Or they had like a whole field, like the abandoned fields of old aircraft out in the desert. It's just, Cobra paraphernalia. They just put it in an order and slap it on the truck and send it on out. Make sure you get payment on delivery, because it's not coming back in one piece.
Destro's gonna bring me another super weapon I must destroy.
But as an action episode, there's a lot of action in this one, to its credit. There's lots of fighting, there's lots of chasing, there's lots of punching. Things
properly
explode.
Looking Crimson Guard as well.
Yes, proper looking Crimson Guardsman, and it has a momentum, and it never really slows down or stops to think, thankfully. And I'm watching it this morning going, okay, this is not that bad, actually, because I watched it on Tubi, on television, in my pajamas with a bowl of cereal in front of me, which is the way these shows are meant to be watched. But I was fine with it until the one moment, and I think you all know what I'm going to be referring to. It's the moment that Airborne reveals he possesses the power of ESP. And no word of a lie, I think I almost choked on a Cheerio at that moment, because ESP is such a weird thing that was so astonishingly popular in the cartoons and the movies of the late 70s and the early 80s. And
just like Quicksand was.
Quicksand, yeah, and Magic Carpets and ESP. It even features in my favorite bad movie, which is The Black Hole.
I love that movie.
Where a character is told, quick, use your ESP, which she does just the once, and it never comes back into play. And here, Airborne reveals he's got a headache, and when it clears, he knows that Cobra has kidnapped the prince, because ESP never lies. And Airborne's ESP powers never, to my knowledge, ever came into play ever again. But here it reads like they just needed some quick shorthand to move the story along. And back in my in my younger years, as I was starting out as a writer, there was the term it was coined about psychic characters. Basically, anytime a character in a movie or on TV seemed to have insider knowledge that they could have only known by sitting in the theater watching the movie they were starring in, or they're either psychic or they have a copy of the script hidden away that they're referring to. So Airborne is a literal psychic character in this episode, which is kind of odd because there's probably a million ways they could have gotten this information across without make one of the characters a psychic, give him ESP. So it just seems a little weird. But this got to an interesting larger point because in this episode featuring ESP, and then issue 37, which we just reviewed, also features ESP. Is this coincidence or is it ESP?
Actually, real quick, Brad, this isn't the first time it's mentioned. Actually,
No.
A couple episodes ago, they had his brother was a psychic that Cobra had stolen a bunch of people with different powers or whatever, and then mentioned that him and his brother had a psychic connection.
Oh, so they were planning it all along.
And that one was written by.
So wait, hold on. There's now 2 other brothers that have a psychic connection. Is what you're saying?
Not as strong as the twin, but yes. I'm going back to look at it real quick to see what we're talking. But yes, it was just a couple episodes ago. I want to say 2 episodes ago. If you can bear with me just half a second, I can tell you which one it was. Operation Mind Menace. 2 episodes ago. There was Operation Mind Menace, then the Battle for the Train of Gold, and then this one. And yeah, one of them was Airborne's his little brother had telekinetics. And I think they made mention that they've got some sort of link. So this actually isn't now that they actually did kind of set this up previously. And they're written by different writers also. That one was written by the Operation Mind Menace was written by Martin Pascoe. And this one, as I said, was written by Ted Pedersen. It wasn't even the same writer following up on.
But they must have had lunch together. So
yeah,
no, I think what it means is the series Bible that every writer is handed. It's probably specifically made mention that Airborne has in his family all have ESP. I guess they thought that would help them somewhere down the road. So they make sure they know he has ESP in case they write themselves into a corner and they have to get out and have Airborne go, oh, wait a minute.
They set it up and how they used it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it ever comes up again. Anyway, carry on, Brad. Go ahead and carry on, Brad.
Oh, I think that was about all I had to say. The ESP thing really kind of threw me. I was not expecting that. I guess I missed the Mind Menace episode. So I was not prepared for Airborne's younger brother to carry on the ESP trade. Although was Airborne's brother Airborne's name spelled backwards?
I'm trying to remember if they ever told us what his name was. Sure they did, but it wasn't Airborne backwards. I would have remembered that.
Is Kevin writing it backwards to see what it's going to be?
Shush, I'm writing it backwards. It would be in Robria.
I'm pretty sure his brother's name wasn't Enrobia, but
it should have been.
Coulda. Oh, that's hilarious. In fact, as we're talking, I'm going elsewhere on the internet to see what his brother's name was.
Well, I just happen to have the file card brought up for Airborne in case you guys want to hear it. His real name is Franklin Taltry, and his birthplace was a Navajo reservation in Arizona. Airborne infantryman, helicopter gunship gunner. Airborne's parents are oil-rich Navajos who indulged their eldest son with skydiving lessons. Taltry also studied law and passed the Arizona State bar exams. Joined the Army and opted for airborne training commitment. Quote, I'd rather jump out of an airplane than write legal briefs. Graduated top of his class from Airborne School, Fort Benning, qualified expert, Hughes helicopter chain gun, M16, M60, and the M1911A auto pistol. And a little quote at the bottom says, Airborne jokes around and gets loose. but he's serious too. Dead serious. You look at him and sometimes he's looking right through you. Must be that Indian in him. The Navajos call it, quote, the far-seeing look. Spooky. That's what it says.
So it looks like the file card was kind of setting it up also, a little bit, without really committing to it. And real quick, his brother's name was Tommy.
What's Tommy spelled backwards?
Good one. You might.
I like Enrobia better.
A missed opportunity. Anyways, Kevin. I lost my train of thought. What are your thoughts on
this episode? Actually has a special place in my heart because there was a time that I would record these G.I. Joe episodes onto a little tape deck. You know, those ones that had a little handle that popped out, had a little counter on them and a little air headphone jack in them as well. And I would put it next to the TV and I would hit record when it came on live. And when the commercials came on, I would pause it and then unpause it when the show came on. And this was one of the episodes that I had recorded and I would listen to in my Sony Walkman, basically, when I would go out bike riding, BMX, skateboarding, what have you, and then tell people I was listening to punk music instead. So that's what I remember, because I remember the Cobra Soundwaves, and I just remember it being a fun episode to listen to. This episode gets a bonus point for having a Major Blood appearance and Wild Weasel and the Rattlers. Has it ever been discussed that the laser sounds coming out of the weapons and the ships or the planes or what have you sound like the same sampled laser sounds the Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers would use?
No, I don't think it's been brought up yet.
Listen to it again. Just saying. I think some sampled sounds were used there. Like I mentioned earlier, I love the Cobra Desert Lair. I'm wondering, too, what contractor this Destro used to make his super weapons. I know that he's a weapons manufacturer, but I just wonder when he asked his minions if they roll their eyes when here's another big gun for Cobra Commander to ruin, the Ultra Shockwave gun. I thought it was a funny scene where the Cobra claws, the kind of like little rocket winged backpacks that the Cobras come in, and they're battling a Roadblock, Gung Ho, and Ace. I love the fact that one of them, Roadblock, just outmaneuvers one of them on foot and they crash. And then Gung Ho throws sand in the eyes of another one. And then Ace does a nice maneuver where he leaps over and he grabs the leg of one. So I thought those were very genius ways to take out the Cobra claws. Did anyone notice that when the Joes were captured in the battle arena, and it just seems like that the typical trope of the main villain being Cobra Commander or a Bond villain would capture them, and then they would walk out of the room before they actually die, and just leave it to whatever device it is to kill them. But did you notice the cool little Cobra Commander phone that he has when he gets the call to leave?
I like that phone.
I'm just going to say missed opportunity for a working phone toy. Just going to say. We touched on the Cobra Commander Death Match Arena. Got to have one of those in every Cobra lair. I find that very humorous, but I love it. There's always, of course, underground caverns. I like the use of this. I thought that was kind of cool. Did you guys know that the voice of Optimus Prime, Peter Cullen, does the voice for Airborne? When I heard Airborne's voice, I'm like, that sounds really familiar. I looked it up. It's Peter Cullen.
Well, that kind of answers a question on one of mine I had. When Airborne shows up, when he comes around the corner, when he tells that he's telling Flint that the 3 Joes are MIA. When he comes in the room, he sounds a little bit like John Wayne.
Yeah. Definitely has a John Wayne voice, yeah. Remember when the Joes are captured by the Cobras and they're flying away? The Joes are basically being dragged in the air by a net. That has to be not only frightening, but like insanely scary. Just imagine being in a net and being dragged in the air by it. Seriously, by a jet.
How fast does jets go? Being dragged at high speeds by in a net. Yeah, that's got to be a little.
Especially when the plane hit Mach 1, then you'd really feel it.
Yeah. I love the fact that the Ace and the Sky Striker set the diversion, but the rest of the Joes coming on the gliders, which aren't affected by the ultrasonic gun fail. But of course, the gun falls over the edge because Cobra Commander maneuvers it incorrectly, but he survives. And I just like at the end, the Joes are treated to a banquet, but you know, it's not by the chic. Roadblock's got to cook, and Wild Bill's got to share his hot links. That's what I got.
I'll be going through my notes and talk about a little bit, but I'll mention them again. I love Ace in his card metaphors / puns. Every time he's trying to make another metaphor pun about playing cards, because that's what he does.
Oh, I get it now. It's because Ace is a card. Ah.
Yeah. I'm just turning the show around going home now. I do like the Snakehead Mountain that Cobra has there. It's very nice. I don't know if they found that cave or if that was built by one of their Cobra contractors. But I do love that.
We need a Cobra contractors show. I'm just saying. Hey, I found a great place for a lair. It's got underground caverns, you know, and I think there's a big enough area for an arena because you know Cobra Commander's going to ask for it.
But is it shaped like a snake? Shaped like a snake. They can work on us.
I love
and again, you guys made the comment already that Cobra Commander loves his arenas. And that Cobra cell phone, that was a quick call he took. And I do love how when Cobra Commander finished the call, he set the phone down, upside down. He had to readjust it. I mean, I could see that being like in a live action show, but for a cartoon, I think that's just a nice little touch. Setting the phone down upside down and having to readjust it real quick. I don't know if you guys caught that. I don't know. I enjoyed that. Back into the arena. The Joes are throwing stones and building fires out of wood. Every time we look in that arena, it's empty except for the 3 Joes. Where is all that stuff that they're building the fire with? And where's all that coming from? Does anyone know?
They got a lighter? I don't know. Were they sirs? I don't know.
It's just the 3 of them in an empty pit.
I'm sure they had enough time to rub 2 sticks together to create fire, right?
Where'd the sticks come from? And how that rocks they were throwing, every time you showed the arena, it was empty. And what is that crab made out of? They were able to blow a hole through, like that door looked like it was a foot thick, and they were able to blow a hole in it, but they couldn't touch the crab. I don't know what the metal they're using, but that was some damn good metal.
Vibranium, maybe? I don't know.
I was gonna say wrong universe, but no, at the time that would have been the universe. Yeah, I do love when the Joes are escaping. Cobra Commander's blaming the closest Crimson Guardsman to him. This is your fault. Why are you letting them escape? And as the Joes are running down that cavern, the Cobras are watching them on a monitor. But the camera apparently is a floating invisible camera right in front of them because it's following along with them as they're running down that hall. And another question, again, I'm not that knowledgeable about these things. The river that's under the tunnel, if the river is that far down, would the ground still be that wet where they're have to take it fill the moisture from the water, where they blew a hole in the ground, they fell quite a distance, it looked like, into the water? That's one thing that kind of didn't sit right with me either. I know it's a cartoon, but
There are some bridges that are too far, even for G.I. Joe.
And when Scarlet was in the jets, or the helicopter, the jet, he was resting. The helicopter, I got jet. He was resting on her crossbow. That can't be on her back. The crossbow on her back. Man, that can't be comfortable on her. And I've got a note here about psychic ability. You mentioned episode 35 of this show. And then my last note is help me. I don't need anyone's assistance. Like, well, wait a minute. Your Cobra Commander's going from help me to I don't need anyone's assistance. All right, try it again, buddy. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the episode. Overall, I say it wasn't one of the best I've seen, but it was an enjoyable episode for what it was. Yeah, I think that's gonna do it for that stuff. 1 second. Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a quick break. Unless you guys have any other comments on the cartoon, Brad.
I'm still trying to get my head around ESP.
You're fine with the signals, and you're fine.
You're not supposed to get your head around ESP. ESP is supposed to get around you.
I was waiting for that. Any further thoughts, Kevin?
Like I said, I just remember enjoying this because I used to listen to it, and just like you guys said before, we always poke fun of it, but we poke fun of it because we love it.
Amen.
Agreed. It all comes from a place of love and affection for this cartoon, and for
except ESP.
ESP is not the most egregious thing that's happened in this show to make you go, what? But it's certainly the type of thing that you would expect to see in G.I. Joe. So I probably should not have been that surprised. It just seemed to really.
What?
What's funny though is that Duke or someone says, "Oh, it's that ESP thing. It's in his file card, or it's in his and then he actually says that." Yeah. And I that's when I was like, oh, I got to look on what it actually says. And it doesn't say on the toy file card.
Well, then when Airborne tells them that, the Joes are in trouble, they've been captured, whatever, or it was the Sheik. It was Sheik was being captured. So it's like, you better be right. What do you mean? I don't quite understand that line. Well, you better be right.
Or what?
Wrong. I mean... Yeah, it was a decent enough episode. It wasn't like the greatest, but by all means, it wasn't the worst, even with ESP. I'm using my ESP now. No, I'm just telling you guys, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you. I'll come back and I'll do first off the kit. Soldier of the Month. I'll do Soldier of the Month with you guys and have you guys pimp yourself back on. Okay. Okay, so let's go and come back. I'll bring you guys back. And here comes the guys back from their break. So, gentlemen, before we let you go, I've got one final segment I'm going to do here. This is Soldier of the Month. So the Soldier of the Month is someone that I feel deserves special recognition, someone that either has done something for the show or sent me something personal or whatever. And this month here, I am going to give the Soldier of the Month to Kevin Reitzel. Kevin, we were talking on Facebook last night, and you made the comment about posted to the Facebook group about having people comment on the cartoon and on the issue and read them on the air. Didn't have very many people take me up on that, but that was a good idea. So I appreciate your help in making the show a better show.
Oh, glad I could help. That was one of the things we started doing is I would post something that we would talk about on an upcoming podcast, whatever show we're doing. And it's nice to get the people to chime in, the fans and friends to chime in with their responses. And then you give them a shout out on the show and it makes them invested in listening to the show. So, yeah.
So thank you very much for that suggestion. And that is why, Kevin Reitzel, you are our Soldier of the Month.
Thanks, man.
Yay.
I've got the parking spot out for a little more crowded right now. My son, my middle son and his girlfriend moved in for a while. So
I was going to say Brad could show more enthusiasm, but I think that's just the way Brad shows enthusiasm. Yay.
That is enthusiasm on my part.
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it, Jeff.
And I appreciate everything you guys do for the show. Speaking of which, if anyone wants to hear from you guys, Kevin, you were talking about how you doing your show. Tell them about your show.
I am the co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, and our master feed is fpnet.podbean.com, and we have several shows on the network: Star Wars, Star Trek, Highlander, a show that I host, and we also have a bunch of others on there. But our newest show that we're very proud of is called the True Believers, an MCU podcast, where we discuss all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe happenings. And lately, of course, we've been covering WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and we will continue to cover all the new shows that release, including Loki coming up, the movies. We're also going to go back and touch on some of the other movies and television series. But one of the things we like to do is take a deep dive and how they connect to the comics as well, and how they're using the comics to basically lay the groundwork for this wonderful world of the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, that has been done very, very well. So make sure you check us out. We're also on Facebook, Fandom Podcast Network. We also have a Facebook group for the True Believers. Make sure you check that out. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network. And also you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix.
Very good. And Brad, do you have anything you want to pimp or let them know how to find you? If you want to see about
I think you have to send a raven to find him.
Yes. You have to light the beacons. You have to light the beacons and wait for the chain to reach me. That's not true. I'm very easy to find. If you Google my name, the first thing that pops up is my website, bradabraham.com, which is where you go for all your bradabraham.needs. And next month, I will be launching a newsletter, which will probably run about quarterly, and it'll just be updates as what I've been up to and where I've been the last little while, because I've been keeping my head down. And as a special gift, it's going to include the original short story "Spite the Devil," which continues the story begun in my novel "Magician's Impossible," which is available in fine bookstores everywhere. So if you want to know what happens next in that amazing novel, subscribe to the newsletter and you'll get a free story.
Sweet.
And again, I don't think I've said this episode. If you haven't read Magician's Impossible yet, go find it.
You should read it. You should read it. It makes a great gift for you and 20 of your closest friends.
Yes, buy many copies, and yes, it was a great story, and I'm waiting for more. So sign up for your newsletter. And before I fit my stuff real quick, we were asking earlier about Jared and about Flexograph, because we have an artist that knows about it. So I sent Jared a message, and I asked him if you Flexograph printing, do you know what it is? His answer is going to Google Flexograph now. Well, just wondering, as an artist, maybe do something about it. I've got nothing. I'm about to read the article. I'm sorry. Well, thank you, sir. And he's like, someday I'll be useful. I swear it. So this is the last word from Jared, since he can't even do an artist question for us at this point. There goes that. But after I share real quick that even if Jared was here, Kevin, he would disappoint you. Much like his wife says about him. Well,
Uh-oh.
I'm Joe.
Shots fired. The next episode Jared's on is going to be interesting.
Rare Saucer Middle 3.
But no, and for more on me, I've got my entire Headcast network. I've got my website, headcastnetwork.com. I've got my Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Headcast Network. And I've also got one for this show, which is facebook.com/groups/GI Joe. Go over there and join us on the GI Joe Facebook group and leave a message, say hi, comment. I'll be posting whatever I need to on there, and also my Head Speaks group. You can find this and my other shows on most podcatchers. And I've gone over my shows every month. I'm going to skip it this time. I've got 7, 8 shows out there. So you look on the internet, you'll find me. But I guess that's going to do it for this evening. Once again, gentlemen, I wish to thank you very much for joining me, taking time out of your Saturday evening to talk some G.I. Joe with this old man. And I guess I'll do it until next month. Until then, remember, knowing is half the battle. Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate that.
That was fun.
I enjoy talking to you guys. So
I
I'm
know
using I'm using
yeah,
ESP.
I was
And
wondering.
say I agree with you.
That's what I thought I heard.
I like that when we talk about issues or episodes that aren't necessarily the greatest, but we still have fun doing it.
Issues and episodes would be a really